In this documentary, we'll travel back to the world's Columbian Exposition of 1893, better known as the Chicago World's Fair. No actual film footage exists, but a lot of images and paintings do. With AI, we will animate historic photos and paintings to recreate the sights of the fair. The World's Fair was held in Chicago's Jackson Park from May to October 1893 to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus's voyage. It showcased the rebirth of Chicago only 22 years after the Great Fire of 1871, and proved the city could host an event of unprecedented scale. More than 27 million visitors flocked to Chicago for this 6-month spectacle. Chicago won the bid to host the fair over New York and other rivals by raising enormous funds and promising ample space. Under the direction of architect Daniel Burnham and landscape designer Frederick Law Olmsted, a dream city arose. 14 great buildings were arranged around a grand basin of water representing Columbus's voyage. They followed Beaux-Arts principles, grand neoclassical facades coated in gleaming white staff plaster, which earned the fairgrounds the nickname the White City. The uniform alabaster color and electric lighting made the scene dazzling by day and night. Prominent architects like Richard Morris Hunt and Charles McKim contributed to designs, while sculptors and painters added artistic flourishes. Beyond just celebration, the fair's beauty had lasting impact. It inspired the City Beautiful movement in urban planning. At the fair's dedication, Chicago's leaders proclaimed their city's recovery and rising status to the world. President Grover Cleveland opened the exposition by activating a telegraph to set the machinery in motion, a moment captured in paintings of the day. The fair was officially underway, ready to showcase American innovation and culture on a grand stage. Nearly every visitor's breath was taken away upon entering the Court of Honor, the central plaza of the White City. Here, a massive reflective pool called the Grand Basin was flanked by gleaming white palaces. At the east end by Lake Michigan stood a classical Ferris-style arcade of columns and a grand triumphal arch. In front of it rose the towering statue of the Republic, a gilded 65-foot-tall female figure sculpted by Daniel Chester French, holding a staff and laurel crown. The statue watched over the basin, symbolizing American liberty and progress. In the basin's waters, fountains sprayed arcs of water. The centerpiece was Frederick McMonnies' Columbian fountain, an allegorical sculpture of a ship carrying figures of progress, being steered by time and heralded by fame. This magnificent fountain spouted water, and electric lights illuminated it after dusk, creating a magical scene that artist Winslow Homer even painted in the fountains at night. Visitors could ride in gondolas on the basin, drifting under white bridges. It was a vision of elegance. Enclosing the Court of Honor were monumental exhibition halls. The most prominent was the Administration Building, designed by Richard Hunt, with its huge central dome and 4 corner pavilions. This served as the fair's headquarters and information center. Opposite it across the water was Manufactures and Liberal Arts Building, the largest structure at the fair, in fact one of the largest buildings in the world at the time. Its immense interior housed exhibits of industry, science, and arts from many nations. Other grand halls lining the court included the Agricultural Building with a triumphal arch entrance and a giant dome of its own, the Mines and Mining Building, the Machinery Hall, and the Electricity Building. All were built in harmonious classical style, columns, domes, and statuary everywhere, creating a unified streetscape of white palaces. The scene was so ethereal that visitors dubbed it the Dream City. At night, the Court of Honor became even more enchanting. Electric lights, a new marvel in 1893, outlined the cornices of the buildings and reflected in the basin's waters. Powerful searchlights, courtesy of Westinghouse Electric, beamed from the rooftops, and the fountains glowed with colored lights. This was the first World's Fair illuminated extensively by electricity. And people were astonished by the sight of a city shining after dark. The White City truly never slept, dazzling visitors in a way gaslight never could. Beyond the central court, the fairgrounds sprawled with more specialized halls and attractions. Each building was an architectural gem. A standout was the Transportation Building designed by Louis Sullivan. Sullivan boldly broke the all-white tradition by painting his building in rich colors and showcasing an enormous golden arch entryway in red, yellow, and blue hues. Dubbed the Golden Door, this ornate archway became a signature image of the fair, symbolizing the gateway to modern transportation. Inside, the Transportation Building displayed locomotives, steamships, and even full-size recreations of historical vessels. Other main structures included the Horticultural Building, a glass-domed palace filled with exotic plants and flowers, and the Fisheries Building with its distinctive curving roof and aquariums of marine life. The Palace of Fine Arts, a grand Beaux-Arts building with a green copper dome, showcased paintings and sculptures from around the world. It was one of the few buildings made of more permanent materials, brick and plaster, to protect the art. And it's the only major fair building still standing in Jackson Park today, rebuilt as Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry. Another charming contrast to the classical halls was the wooded island in the lagoon, an oasis of nature designed by Olmsted. It housed the quaint Japanese Ho-O-Den Phoenix Temple, a traditional Japanese building brought from Japan, which introduced many Americans to Japanese architecture. Nearby stood national pavilions, France, Germany, Great Britain, etc., and state buildings. Each U.S. state built a house to represent itself. One beloved state pavilion was the Idaho Building, a rustic log cabin-style hall that gave fairgoers a cozy break from marble grandeur. It was so popular that nearly 18 million people visited it. Inside the giant exhibition halls, the latest inventions and products were on display. The machinery hall boasted engines and industrial machines thundering away, the cutting edge of manufacturing. The electricity building was especially crowd-pleasing, devoted entirely to electrical technology, a first for a World's Fair. Here, under a lofty roof, visitors found Thomas Edison's exhibits of telegraphs and a functioning kinetoscope, early motion picture viewer. They saw arc lights and incandescent lamps illuminating exhibits, electric incubators hatching chicken eggs, and a dazzling 82-foot electric tower studded with bulbs that formed patterns, a prototype light show. At the building's entrance stood a statue of Benjamin Franklin, fitting for the electricity theme. Perhaps most impressive was the section where Nikola Tesla's alternating current system was demonstrated by Westinghouse Electric. Westinghouse ran massive AC generators on site, powering the fair's 93,000 lamps. In a darkened room, Tesla himself wowed audiences by holding wireless gas discharge lamps that lit up in his hands, powered by unseen electromagnetic fields. Fairgoers had never seen anything like it. Science fiction come to life. The electricity building also introduced consumer marvels, like electric kitchen appliances, dishwashers, and the new telephone. Alexander Graham Bell's telephone exhibit let people in Chicago talk to people in New York. The Bell Telephone Company even had a live operator's station on display. It's no wonder the fair was dubbed the University of the Future for its educational impact. Other fun exhibits included a gigantic steam engine by Alice that was so large it had to be sunk partly below floor level, and an 11-ton Krupp artillery cannon from Germany, so heavy the floor was specially reinforced. In the agricultural building, aside from farming tools, one oddity was the butter cow. A cow sculpted entirely from butter, kept cool somehow despite the crowds. The mines and mining building displayed ores and minerals, including a towering obelisk of salt and the latest mining equipment. The manufactures and liberal arts building, being the largest, hosted an enormous variety of products, from furniture and pianos to exotic imports like silk from China and carpets from Turkey. Many companies that would become 20th century giants had booths here. For example, a little chocolate company from Pennsylvania run by Milton Hershey, who purchased a European chocolate-making machine he saw at the fair. This led to Hershey's mass-produced chocolate in the USA. The fair also introduced new foods like Cracker Jack caramel popcorn and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. The fair wasn't just about industry. Culture and art were celebrated too. Daily concerts were given by orchestras and famous band leaders like John Philip Sousa. On Chicago Day, over 750,000 people poured in, a world record for an outdoor event at the time, and the city's mayor addressed the throngs in the Court of Honor. The World's Congress Auxiliary hosted intellectual conferences on everything from religion to anthropology. In an ornate building downtown, now the Art Institute of Chicago. One very important pavilion was the Women's Building, designed by architect Sophia Hayden, the first woman to design a major fair building. It showcased accomplishments of women around the world, from fine arts and literature to science and education, all curated by an all-female board. Notably, it featured a library of women's writings and an array of inventions by women. The structure itself was elegant, with arches and a rooftop garden, though modest in size compared to others. While the White City impressed with its refinement, the Midway Plaisance brought fun, curiosity, and cultural spectacle. This mile-long stretch adjacent to the main fair was the world's first dedicated amusement zone at a World's Fair, a concept that would influence all future fairs and carnivals. On the Midway, visitors could cut loose and be entertained, distinctly separate from the formal exhibition halls. It was a bustling street of concessions, live shows, international villages, and rides. Towering above everything was the fair's most iconic attraction, the Ferris wheel. Invented by George Washington Ferris, this was the world's first Ferris wheel, intended as America's answer to the Eiffel Tower, which had been the marvel of the 1889 Paris Expo. The wheel was colossal, 264 feet tall, with 36 wooden cars, each the size of a bus, carrying 60 passengers. Skeptics thought it would never work, but it did, lifting visitors high above the fair for a bird's-eye view of the White City. Riding the Ferris wheel became the must-do experience of the fair. For 50 cents, people took a 20-minute ride up into the sky, often singing or cheering as the wheel slowly turned and the expanse of the fair unfolded below. By day the view was grand, by night even better, as the fair gleamed with lights. The Ferris wheel carried about 1.5 million riders during the fair's run, saving the Exposition from financial ruin with its ticket sales. It was truly an engineering triumph and the ancestor of all Ferris wheels today. The Midway offered a tour of the world in miniature. Dozens of international villages were constructed, each populated by actual performers and vendors from those cultures. Visitors could stroll from a Cairo street with Egyptians and Sudanese performing and selling wares, to a Javanese village with gamelan music, to a German beer garden, a French theater, or an Irish village, all in a day. One extremely popular stop was the Street of Cairo. Here, amidst facades imitating an old Cairo bazaar, people could ride donkeys, buy spices, watch snake charmers, and attend the Egyptian theater. It was in this theater that the dancer Little Egypt performed her suggestive belly dances, shocking and delighting Victorian-era audiences. Her dances introduced America to the hoochie coochie, creating a sensation and a bit of scandal in the press. Nearby, Algerian and Turkish village shows featured similarly mesmerizing dances and music. Among the amusements was Buffalo Bill's Wild West. Technically outside the fairgrounds, since he wasn't an official exhibitor, Buffalo Bill Cody set up next door and drew huge crowds to see Annie Oakley's sharp shooting and staged cowboy and Indian dramas. Inside the Midway, there was also an ice railway, a strange roller coaster on rails over a frozen track, and Hagenbeck's Animal Show, where trained lions and tigers performed in an arena. There was even an Eskimo village and a Lapland village with reindeer, giving a glimpse of Arctic life. The fair's anthropological exhibits were a mix of education and uncomfortable exotification, portrayed as living exhibits of different races, a concept we'd find inappropriate today. Still, for the fairgoers of 1893, seeing Samoans, Dahomeans, or Sioux Indians in person was an eye-opening experience in cross-cultural exposure, albeit filtered through colonialist perspectives. Aside from the Ferris wheel, another first-of-its-kind ride was the moving sidewalk on the pier at the lakefront, dubbed the Great Wharf. It was a moving conveyor that carried people along the waterfront. It sounds mundane now, but in 1893 the idea of standing on a moving floor was novel entertainment. Also docked by the pier was a curious vessel, a full-size replica of a Viking longship. This ship, called the Viking, had actually sailed from Norway across the Atlantic through the Great Lakes to Chicago to prove that the Norse could have reached America before Columbus. The sleek wooden Viking ship with its dragon-headed bow became a star attraction moored in the fair's lagoon. Not far from the Viking ship, 3 replicas of Columbus's ships, the Niña, Pinta, and Santa Maria, were anchored. Having sailed from Spain, fairgoers could board these caravels and imagine the harrowing voyage of 1492. The juxtaposition was symbolic. Columbus's celebrated ships and the Viking boat quietly suggested someone else might have gotten here first. The Midway also overflowed with food and drink. You could sample German sausages, French pastries, Turkish coffee, and the new curiosity hamburger sandwiches. The world's first Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, awarded a blue ribbon at the fair, was poured in the beer halls. For 10 cents, one could even try chewing gum. Inventor William Wrigley Jr. was at the fair promoting his new gum, which would soon become a Chicago business empire. By day, the Midway was lively. By night, it was dazzling in a different way. From the White City, strings of multicolored electric lights and Japanese lanterns lit up concession booths and pathways. The Ferris wheel's outline blinked with lights, and music from different quarters mingled in the night air. An Ottoman marching band here, a Chinese opera there, the distant calliope of a carousel. It was reported that one could stand at the Ferris wheel's base at night and hear a babel of sounds, languages and music from around the globe, blending into a unique symphony. The Midway Plaisance gave many Americans their first taste of multicultural entertainment and laid the groundwork for the modern amusement park. After 6 months, the Great Fair closed on October 30th, 1893. It had been a tremendous success, paying off its debt and leaving Chicago flush with pride. A few days before closing, Chicago Day drew 750,000 people in one day, a record, showing how the fair had captured the public's imagination. The fair had showcased American industrial power and cultural aspirations on the world stage. It also left tangible legacies: technological adoption, electric infrastructure, widespread public electricity, and even the city's symbol, one of the 4 stars on Chicago's municipal flag today, represents the 1893 World's Fair. Most of the White City, however, was not built to last. The ornate buildings made of plaster staff on wooden frames were intended as temporary wonders. After the fair, there were discussions to preserve some structures by rebuilding them in stone, but those plans fell through. Tragically, in July 1894, a fire swept through Jackson Park and destroyed almost all of the remaining fair buildings. The White City literally went up in flames, an eerie epilogue to its brief, shining moment. Only a few structures survived. The Palace of Fine Arts survived the fire and became a museum. As mentioned, it's now Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry, and the little wooded island with its Japanese garden remained a park refuge. A handful of state and foreign buildings were saved by being relocated. For example, the Norwegian Stave Church was moved to Wisconsin, and the main state building to Maine. The Ferris wheel itself had a post-fair life. It was dismantled and moved to Chicago's North Side, then to the 1904 St. Louis Fair, before eventually being scrapped. In the end, the spirit of the 1893 World's Fair lived on far beyond its physical structures. It influenced architecture, encouraging city planners to strive for civic beauty, gave America iconic treasures like the Ferris wheel and consumer products, and even inspired literature and art. The fair showed a nation recovering from civil war and economic panic that optimism and ingenuity could build a dazzling future. As we've seen through these AI-animated images, the Chicago World's Fair of 1893 was more than an exhibition. It was a fleeting city of dreams, the White City, that continues to fascinate us over a century later.